Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Clap Louder. Today, we are interviewing my brother, Max Klapp, who is a tattoo artist in Washington State. He is one of the most creative people I know. If you're interested in following him, all his info will be down in the description. Also, if you're interested in contacting us, our email is clappodcast@gmail.com, KLAPPPODCAST@gmail.com. That's 3 P's in the middle. With that being said, let's get into the episode.
All right, Max. Welcome to Clap Louder, our podcast.
Oh,
I love when I'm talking to people and they look at me. I don't have a single tattoo,
me either.
and I go, yeah. Oh, my brother. Yeah, I know he's a tattoo artist in Washington. And they go, what? And especially because when I was a Mormon missionary, they'd be like, what does your family do? You have a family of 10 siblings? And I'm like, no, I have one brother, and he's a tattoo artist, and he looks nothing like me.
He's much thinner and has a really great beard.
Yeah. So anyway, I've always just loved being able to tell people that my brother's a tattoo artist, and I've always been really proud of you for that. It's always like it's fun because you're a rebel.
On the flip side of that, I always loved telling people, I'd be tattooing them, and they'd ask the same thing, like, oh, it's like, do you have, like, who? Tell me about your family. Okay. Well, I have a brother, and then, a mom and dad. And they would always ask, well, what does your brother do? I was like, well, at that time, he was on a mission. They're like, a what? Like a secret mission? I'm like, no, he's not like a spy. He's Mormon. I was like, and I would always tell them, I grew up Mormon. And they'd be like, what? There's actually quite a huge number of, I gotta hear myself a little better. There's quite a huge number of tattooers that grew up in the church.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, it's probably a little bit like when somebody is like kept from something, or it's like when a parent goes, you can't be a race car driver, and then they go, friggin' watch me,
Yeah.
They join NASCAR, like Ricky Bobby.
Watch this. Yeah.
Do you feel like that was a little bit what fed into your desire to be a tattoo artist, was to rebel against mom and dad? Yeah.
Well, no, not necessarily that. It's odd sometimes when I'll tell my life story, because I had a few years where I did like some really wild shit. And why? I didn't grow up in a broken home. My parents were like more than loving. They were always there. I was never left wanting anything. My brother just always wanted to hang out with me, and I was just a dick. For no reason. I was like, I don't know. I think that I always thought, like, yeah, for some reason, mom and I always kind of butted heads, I think, a little bit. And I think that's just...
I'm kind of similar. Like,
are you?
I didn't do anything as crazy as you. You're way cooler than me. But
yeah, hardly.
But I feel like, I'm like, I don't know why I was rebellious either. I just did, and like didn't go with my parents as much when I was younger. And like now that's changed, obviously. But I don't know why either. It's just like I think it's just like a personality thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like, I remember I was just thinking about this the other day when I was a senior in high school, and I had like it was right before we were supposed to go skiing in Utah, and I had like bounced. I was like, I'm out. I'm not coming home, and I'm not answering anyone's phone calls. And it was like there was some drug use involved there. Obviously, why else would I do such a silly thing? And like, I don't know, mom sent me like a text message or left me a voicemail. It was before text messaging. It was like when I had like those really, this is 2005, maybe, no, 2004, the winter, it was like November 2004 or February or January 2005, something like that.
Wow.
Mom left me a voicemail. She's like, you don't come back, I'm going to report your car stolen. If you don't want to come back, just leave me your car. And I came back, and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what the fuck I was doing, but
so
and then we all hopped on a plane and went to Utah for like a week.
Yeah.
and skied and snowboarded. This was not the time that I got our minivan towed.
Okay, can I tell that story?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the story is, Max, I think you and I, didn't we go back to the condo to get something? Or I can't remember. We're up as a family.
On the same ski trip?
Going on a ski trip. Max, I can't remember if Max and we got in the car for something. Anyway, Max had just gotten his license. We drove back, and he was just like, parking. I can't remember if you were like, I'm just going to park here for a second. Or
no, it was like a C. It was like a massive parking lot for a massive ski resort. Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's at the end. And there was fucking snow on the ground. So I'm like, I'm going to park it here.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't want to ski. I think it was like the 5th day. And we're like, we're over this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The legs were tired and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so Max parks the van, and then we go and eat lunch or something, and we come back, and I remember Max just like, we're walking down the like the parking lot. Max, where's the car? Where's the car, Michael? And I was like, didn't we park right here? Anyway, Max.
So frame of reference for that, you were like 11 or 12.
I was young. Yeah.
That
was funny. So basically, walk me through, like, we already talked about your kind of rebellious teen in high school and stuff, but I remember looking, like, from a very young age, you were drawing stuff, drawing roses. I remember in your notebooks, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember you being a doodler. I mean, there was always doodles on the side of your page. Do you remember when that kind of started, or has it always been a part of your life?
I don't really honestly remember when that started. I remember Mom always, like, when she would be on the phone, because like before corded phones or cordless phones, there's corded phones, right? And you were locked in with one of these bad boys, and so she'd just have, Mom and Dad were always good about taking notes and, like, organizing their thoughts.
Yeah.
And so she would just be like doodling, on the corners of papers, and I always remember that. So I think that's kind of like what got me started there. And then, like, I always tried to paint and do like a bunch of I always tried to be way better than I was, and then got really annoyed when I wasn't, so I was just mostly a doodler. But I then would, like, get really good at drawing skulls or roses, what I thought was really good, which is just total garbage, but I thought it was cool. And yeah, I was drawing on people's arms, just paying attention more to, like, music. And, like, I was just talking to you about this the other day, Michael, but the first social media that I was on was called Melodramatic. And this is like 2001. And it was like a page where, like, if you knew any HTML or CSS, you could, like, completely customize your own page. Like, so I taught myself HTML and CSS. Yeah. Mom and Dad put me in these e-learning classes in high school with Colin and Kevin wasn't in, Colin was in them. And we were just doing nothing but playing that tanks game where you, like, shoot, like, over at each other. and like making, like, these, like, GeoCities and tripod websites. We'd make websites for everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, I then channeled, like, my artistic stuff into, like, creating this super cool persona online that I thought was cool. Or whatever.
So persona as in just, like, the cool background and, like, different things that would animate or whatever on your Melodramatic.
Right. Yeah. Like, like the spinning words where it'd be like a word and it'd be like this.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. That's cool. So when did it become tattooing? When did you feel like you knew you wanted to be a tattoo artist?
So, like, probably in, like, 2005, 2006.
When did you graduate high school?
2005.
Okay.
I started hanging out with Little Max, and we would go to the tattoo shop because that's what was cool. And Max was getting tattooed because he wasn't so much like a latchkey kid, but his mom was just an old cowgirl, and his dad is, like, a construction worker that just neither of them really gave a fuck. His mom really cared a lot, but his dad didn't care. So Max was getting, like, absolutely covered. And there was this one guy in Santa Ana before we all turned 18 that all of these kids were getting tattooed by. And like, it was just like you bring him a 6-pack of Heineken and $100, and you did not get to see what the tattoo was until it was done.
Whoa.
You know, it was like, yeah. But like at this time, we were all like rockabilly and psychobilly kids, so it was like, and punks. So it was like, though all of those people had tattoos, right? Yeah. It was like just like cool, like old, you know, like images of old cars, or like what's known as American traditional tattooing now, which is anchors, swallows, eagles, lady heads, things like that.
And I feel like, well, I don't feel like, I know you can do all different kinds, but I feel like you specialize in American traditional tattooing?
I kind of specialize more in like, well, I prefer to tattoo like more neo-traditional stuff, which is like American traditional, but just with like a little extra detail. Sometimes sometimes 2 line weights will be used.
So explain what you mean there. So American traditional is like typically 1 line weight. So like I'm imagining on PowerPoint or on Photoshop.
Like it's outlined and then colored in.
It's like,
so look, so my hand
yeah,
is very American traditional. You see how it's big, bold lines?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's minimal color.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then like something like, oh, this is going to be hard to do. Hi. Something like this, where there's like more detail into it and like more stuff going on in her face and her eyes.
For our listeners, Max is showing his tattoo on his forearm. It's a portrait of a girl, and it's more detailed.
A vampire girl. Stella calls it mommy.
Really?
Oh,
yeah.
It does kind of look like Lauren a little bit.
That is cute.
But for the most part, I have like mostly American traditional tattoos.
Yeah.
I have like I got a portrait. I have some black and gray stuff. It's kind of all over. I'm not one of those elitist type people that need all the same style tattoo.
How do you feel
not that there's anything wrong with that.
How do you feel about people who I don't know if was it you who told me this, but I feel like sometimes people I asked you one time, like, do you regret any of your tattoos? And I think your answer was something like, it's kind of like chapters of your life. Was that you saying that? So it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't love that band anymore. I don't love that imagery anymore, but it's kind of like who I was then. So, yeah. Do you still agree with that?
Yeah, they're like bookmarks. You know, it's like okay, well, maybe I might not like a certain tattoo. Like, I don't know, like I could have filled this spot on my arm where my friend's initials who passed away are. Mm-hmm. I could have filled that with something different, but like that reminds me of Brian, you know, and all the good times that we had. I only have like a few memorial tattoos. So,
yeah.
You know, but it's like right there in the middle.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I'm also the kind of guy that like when I am full, I'll just layer them over the top. I don't feel like I need to. I don't care.
You don't need to get them. You don't care.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna like get them removed and then tattoo over the removed skin.
Just layer.
No. Also, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I like the way that it looks when it looks like full coverage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I get a panther over the top of this, so it's mostly black, you know, and yeah, you'll be able to see some of the tattoos underneath it, but it'll be kind of cool. It's kind of like a collage, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side, like Chris, my mentor, for people who don't know who Chris is, Chris Stencil, we're, everyone at the shop is in the process of like blacking out his whole body with like negative space design work.
Whoa.
Like he has got, like his leg has negative space ginkgo biloba leaves. Like within the, what's that?
Yeah, explain
what it's a plant. It's a plant.
Oh, okay.
So it's just like a little leaf that kind of looks like a fan.
Nice.
And so he's just like place those leaves like in some negative areas or over tattoos that are super light, and then is blacking his whole leg out. And then Phil is like doing these like Haida, which is a local indigenous tribe. He's doing like that kind of like artwork. It's like a whale tail and like a raven head, and then he's blacking it all out on top of it. And then I'm in the process of blacking out his entire back with like this giant like Hanya or Oni mask, which is a demon dog.
Wow.
In Japanese mythology.
I think those are so cool. Like the black, like when things are totally blacked out. I don't know.
Yeah. I used to hate it, and now I'm like, that looks tight.
Yeah. I remember you had one friend, I think it was Greg, who had his leg was blacked out or something, and that was the first time I'd ever seen anybody do like solid black. And I was like, oh, that's
I've
crazy.
Seen people with like one of their arms like all the way or something.
Yeah,
dude, Greg has gone even further than that. One of like both of his lower legs and then his entire, I think it's his right arm, are completely black.
Wow.
I know a dude, his name's Charlie Coffin. He tattoos in Huntington Beach, and he's completely blacked out. He's got like a line up his throat, and his entire throat is black. His like both of his arms onto his knuckles, all solid black.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
It looks rad.
So going back to kind of, we were talking about mom and dad and the beginning of your tattooing. So tell me about like when you first started tattooing, was that difficult? Did mom and dad approve? How did you manage? How did you get through that? Were you just kind of like?
Actually, I want to know first how you like what your first job was tattooing. Like, how did you start?
So I first started tattooing. So like I said, and I misspoke earlier. I said we started hanging out at the shop in like 2004, before I graduated high school, when Chris was building it. And then 2005 up until 2007, when I started working there, we were just hanging out there constantly. So like we were known to be there. And at the time in 2007, I was working at PF Chang's, and I was like, this is lame. I want to be tattooed, because at that point I only had like a couple of things on my legs that Chris had done, and then like one of his apprentices at that time had done, and I was like, man, I really want to get in the tattoo shop, right? So I was like, so I talked to Max about it, who had a little bit closer of a beat on Chris than I did, and I guess Chris was looking for a shop helper, and I was like, this is my chance, And so like I went, and I don't know if I talked to mom about it or dad. Like I was just like, I quit my job at PF Chang's. No, fuck, I can't remember. I think, was I back at Delco Sales?
I don't know.
I can't remember. I might have been back at Delco Sales, actually. I can't remember.
Delco Sales is our dad's company, for people.
Yeah, I was working in the warehouse. That's right. And I got this opportunity. I was like, Dad, I got this opportunity. And he's like, okay. That's cool. It's what you want, like go through the right channels, make sure you put in your 2 weeks and like do that. And so I like went downstairs and talked to Patty, and I was like, all right, I got through my 2 weeks. I got the chance to work at a tattoo shop. She's like, just bounce.
Really?
I was like, sick, Yeah. And I think mom was probably not too pumped on it. I really don't remember. She started getting stoked on it, I think. Like when she started seeing, like when she met Chris and some of the guys that I work with, and like realized that it's not like the 70s, 60s and 70s bikers, and I mean, it is still that in a lot of places. I've worked for people like that too, and like, but it's more like, dude, I tattoo like mostly college kids, but like refinery workers, teachers, parents, grandparents, great grandparents, priests, well, pastors rather.
Yeah.
It's everyone. Like 1 in 3 people have a tattoo now. You know what I mean? And as Dad says it, it's like everyone wants a tattoo, just not everybody knows what they want yet.
I know. I feel like it's like I don't growing up in Utah, very Mormon. Like I didn't know people who either had tattoos or I didn't know anyone who did that as a career. So I remember when I met Mike, he like told me about you. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like I think I was thinking, oh, it's just all these like crazy bikers and like people get.
They're riding up on their Harleys and shooting everyone on the street.
Like, but then when we went, well, I already kind of knew your clientele before, but when we went and when we came to visit that one time, it was like we watched you. The only people I saw coming into the store were just like college people. When you
because I'm in Bellingham, Washington, and it's a town of 80,000 people, but there's 3 colleges here.
Yeah.
So when the colleges are in session, it goes from 80 to 140,000 people in the city.
Yeah. So you're doing mostly.
And it's like mostly just stuff you see on Pinterest, and I'm not going to be one of those tattooers that complains about that because I just like to tattoo. You know what I mean? So I would rather do eagles and snakes and roses and skulls, but I like to tattoo everyone, and I like to meet people, and I like to make money, you know? So it's like doing names and astrological symbols and constellations and feathers that are breaking off into birds.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it all. I don't care. Yeah. What'd you say?
Is that still a popular?
Yeah.
I definitely, when that was like starting, I was like, oh my gosh.
That speaks to me.
Yeah. And now I'm like, cover me in horror.
Yeah, right.
Portia's like, I want Freddy Krueger right here on my throat. That's cool, man.
So I think mom and dad finally got into it. Well, so I graduated college, which was, they're like, yo, don't get any more tattoos until you graduate college. And I was like, totally. You know, I'm just going to get tattooed everywhere you can't see. You know? So at that point, I got my chest done. I got my stomach done. I got my thighs, you know. So it was, I got the tops of my shoulders here. And I graduated college. And at this point, I was living, so this was, oh shit, I can't remember. I don't want that to sound super cool to you guys because I graduated community college after like 6 years. So don't think I went to like USC or something.
Hey, there's plenty of people who go to college for 6 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Doctors, yeah. So I was tattooing. No, I was living with Chris and Elisa Viejo at that time. And I think I was still shop helping. Yeah, so this is like 2011.
So you're still helping out at the shop.
Yeah.
And when you say you were a helper, were you actually tattooing at this point, or were you just cleaning?
No. So I was just answering phones, cleaning stations, and cleaning the toilet, and smoking cigarettes out front. That was like it.
Nice.
And I did that for 3 years while I still lived with Chris. And then I was 2000. So 2000. So early 2010s, I got in I guess a series of accidents where I continually broke my leg. What year did you get back from your mission, Michael?
2013.
Okay, so this is probably 2012, I think.
Yeah.
When I broke my leg, and all I was doing at the time was sitting on the couch at the front of the shop and just drawing. This up until this point, for the first 3 years I worked at White Lotus, all I was doing is party. You know, it's just like, that's all I cared about. I was like, I work at a tattoo shop. I'm getting tipped in tattoos, and like I'm just having a great time, you know. And I wasn't really focusing on the art aspect of it, drawing, painting. And so then I broke my leg, and that kind of kicked me into gear. And Chris was like, well, I think it's time to start apprenticing you. So, but for the first 3 years I worked there, he's like, you will never learn to tattoo. Stop asking me. I'm not going to teach you ever.
Wow.
And it was to a point of contention a couple of times where I was like, what the fuck am I even doing here, dude? I worked here for 3 years, and you're not gonna teach me? Like, I put my time in. All he was waiting for me was to just show I was serious about it, and I wasn't. I was just screwing around and not really taking it seriously.
Boy, what a wax on, wax off moment.
Yeah. So I started taking it seriously, and then I apprenticed for 3 years. And at this point, so for the first year of my apprenticeship, I was still just essentially doing the same thing that I was doing for the first 3 years, but also like breaking down tattoo machines, scrubbing tubes, and like drawing and painting as much as I could. And then I was able to start like tattooing my homies and like just doing like small, really bad tattoos on them for free, you know, and so I did that for a year. And then my third year of my apprenticeship was like when I was doing like, I could still tattoo my friends, but I could also tattoo people that I didn't know. For the first 2 years of my apprenticeship, I wasn't allowed to tattoo women either. So I could only tattoo dudes, just because Chris was like, you're doing subpar, mediocre apprentice tattoos, and you should not put those on women. You know, that's like, you should not, he was just essentially trying to look out for them as like, you know, pretty ladies shouldn't have shitty tattoos. Kind of
a big sloppy tattoo on them or something. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then I was able to start doing that to tattoo, like, you know, I'd be like $60 for whatever you wanted, you know. And I did like full rib pieces. I did like leg sleeves. I blacked out a couple of arms, you know, so doing that. And then
for contrast, I mean, how much would a leg sleeve actually? You said it's $60. How much would a leg sleeve cost? You know, typically, depending on what you were doing, I guess.
At $150 an hour.
Oh, okay.
It would. I don't know. I could tell you that like most, like a leg sleeve I did from ankle to hip, probably cost like around like between $4,000 and $6,000.
Wow. So you were doing people a favor, kind of.
Kinda. I was kind of fucking them up too, bro.
You're like, yeah, sorry, it's not very good. But.
Yeah, it's like there was a couple times where I would like look at my like the guys trying to help me or my friend who was hanging out the shop and be like, "That's not good."
I love those videos where they like have the picture of what it is, and then they're like typing it off. And it looks nothing like the photo
at all. Yeah,
those make me laugh.
That's super fun. Wow.
And then on July 1st, 2013, it was like a super busy day at the shop, and so I started my apprenticeship in 2010 then. So it was a super busy day at the shop. I started my apprenticeship on August 1st too. So I still remember those dates. I just don't remember the years.
Yeah.
And Chris was like, "Oh, walk-in Canon." He's like, "You ready to take a walk-in?" I was like, "No." What? Yeah, sure. I'm like, "Let's do it." And I did the word laugh on a foot for $80, and that was my first official professional tattoo.
Wow.
But I had done probably like a couple thousand tattoos before that. No, maybe 1,000 tattoos.
Yeah. Wow.
That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't realize. This is fun because I've never known like your story, and maybe this is like ignorant of me, but I always thought you just kind of like would show them your work and then they would like hire you. But
it's kind of how it's more getting into it.
Years.
Like that's kind of how it is now.
Yeah.
A little.
Because I feel like, Max, you and I have had some conversations, and I know you do, like you said, neo-American traditional, but I feel like you have, you kind of, not superstitious, but you have like old traditional like feelings about tattoos. Like I remember you telling me once that you won't tattoo somebody's hands or neck unless they have more tattoos or something like that, or are you kind of eased up on that a little bit more?
I have kind of eased up on that just a little bit with the way the world is now, and there's like 90 in the town of Bellingham. There's 22 tattoo shops if you include the private studios. So if I'm not gonna tattoo your face ever, unless you are fully covered in tattoos. I'm not tattooing your face. You can fuck off. You know, I'm not in the business of ruining people's lives, but I'll do like little things on like the sides of hands or like on a knuckle or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not going to tattoo. I'm not just going to tattoo like a big thing on top of your hand when all you have is your hand and then the side of your neck. No.
You have to earn it.
And I mean,
you have to earn
but
it.
that's like exactly, yeah. Like you need to realize what it's like to have to be heavily tattooed before you're even more extremely heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed I got my sleeves, and people in Orange County just nobody really gave a fuck. Everyone's got tattoos in Southern California. And then I got my knuckles tattooed, and people were a little more like, they would like notice it a little more because that's not as common.
Mhm.
And then I got my hands tattooed, and people were like, oh, wow, that's like, and I would notice people noticing me a little more. And then I got the side of my head tattooed, and then people were like, it was like, that's just, well, at the same time I was in a club, so I was wearing a patch and I had a mohawk, and I was just, people like, I remember going places with mom, and she'd be like, do you not notice everybody staring at you? I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
Because you're just used to it, and Lauren will point it out every now and then. But
I know that you're not an example of every person who's covered in tattoos, but I remember, like, before I left on my mission, I left in 2010, and so you'd already been at the shop for a couple of years, and I remember coming to the shop and meeting people and seeing you with tattoos and meeting these, like, for the most part, really friendly, like probably the nicest people that I had ever met, head to toe tattoos. And I remember that really helped me. I mean, this is like an old saying, but don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing. I remember that really helped me because I wasn't afraid to talk to people. Basically, as a missionary, take the God part out of it. What you're doing is you're talking to people all day long.
Right.
You're just you're talking to people all day long, and the more people you can talk to, the more successful you're going to be. So, but some people would be scared. Missionaries would be scared of people with tattoos, or they would maybe shy away from somebody like that. And because of my experience with you, I just knew that for the most part, people with tattoos were really nice. They're just like normal people. In fact, they're probably more down to earth than people without.
I mean, it's because, I think that a lot of people that are like a little more versed in self-expression, like some musicians, not like, that's very, any type of art, any type of artistry, you're going to have like this group, which is like total normal down to earth dudes. And then you're going to have this group, which is kind of fucking rock stars. And then you're going to have this group that just dickheads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, that's musicians, tattooers, everyone. But for the most part, everyone with tattoos is, or in the tattoo industry at least, is pretty down to earth, unless you got a tattitude.
Unless you got what? The tattitude?
Yeah. The tat attitude.
That sounds like a Disney movie right here. Ratatouille.
Yeah.
This might be a weird question, but so I feel like, and I love this, that tattoos, like you said, it's like everyone gets them now. It's not just like a certain group of people. Do you wish that it was different? Like,
No.
Are you, because I feel like you're pretty like open, but I do, like you were just saying, like I'm sure there's still people who do tattoos that like only want like a specific like type of person to be tattooed. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely an elitist aspect to the tattoo industry, and there's like, you'll see signs in some shops that'll be like, no interest in Pinterest, and it's like, don't show me Google on your phone, get a snake, get a skull. It's like, yeah, of course, all I want to tattoo is skulls and roses. That's like all I want to tattoo. But I like that tattoos are becoming more mainstream. What I don't really like is kids teaching themselves and like
buying
like really watering down the industry. It's like, I just told you I spent 6 years of my life like breaking my fucking back trying to get into this industry, and then you have these kids that are teaching themselves in their homes and don't go through what I went through and don't have to put in the work, and it's like, you're just watering down the industry, because now you have people doing it that are just doing it for a hobby, and that's not the respect that I feel like tattooing should be shown. If you're going to be a tattooer, you should be a tattooer. There's plenty of tattooers that have like retired and like will tattoo part-time, or like there's this one tattooer I know that was a tattooer for years and then decided he wanted to become a nurse. So he still tattoos on the weekends, but he's also a nurse, and that's like, that at that point, I don't consider that a hobby. It's still your profession. You broke your back to get into it and to be successful in it. You just also want to do something else. You know?
Yeah, that's cool.
I like that. Yeah, anyone listening,
Yeah,
go support actual tattooers. Don't have
exactly. Do not have your friends do it. And like you'll have kids come in with their parents and they'll be like, I really want a tat. And they'll be like, how old are you? 16. I'll be like, all right, you got 2 more years to wait. No, I'm going to Jimmy's house. He's got a cousin that'll do it. I'm like, okay. Well, you could come back. You're gonna pay Jimmy's cousin $60 to do it, and then you're gonna pay me $400 to cover it up because it's gonna look very bad. You know what I mean? And you have those kids that like the way that looks, and that's okay. Like, I am not an elitist in the fact that you need to have a tattoo that looks good to me. You know, there's plenty of tattoos that are done well that don't look good to me.
Yeah,
and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that there's tattooing and a couple other things are down here under like markings on the skin, right? And that's like stick and poke. That's tattoo.
Stick and poke meaning like a little bit of ink on a
yeah, like the all that shit that the kids in college are doing these days. You know, and it's fun. You know, I think that has a place.
Mm-hmm.
That's like cool because you're not, for the most part, you're not doing like massive tattoos that are stick and poke. They're just like little fun things, like little reminders to yourself. That's cool. You know, I don't think it's the most sanitary thing. I tried to do one and it grossed me out because it was like the skin was like pulling back every time I pulled the needle out, and I'd have to be like, oh. So I just finished it with a machine. It was on Rodney, one of the guys I work with.
Oh,
it's just, you know, I don't know.
Well, that sounds like more painful than doing.
It's actually not, from what I've been told.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which I don't understand, nor will I ever.
Yeah, me and Michael don't have tattoos, so I don't even know what one feels like.
It's like a hot scratch.
Yeah.
Like wet fire.
Like wet fire.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So I know we've talked about a lot of stuff. Do you have any? Let's say I'm a new person coming to get a tattoo. Walk me through. I come to you. Like, what are some process? Yeah, the process, and also like, what are maybe some no-nos? Like, what are some things that you as tattooers like maybe just put up with, but they don't really like, or maybe just you. I know you can't speak for all tattooers, but say that again.
I think so. You know, like you'll walk into the shop and you'll be like, "Hey, what's up? I'm Michael. I want a tat." And then you'll usually do one of these and just put your phone in my face. You know what I mean?
Did I say tat or tattoo? Because
Tat's like made full circle. Like it's okay to say now, as if you're being ironic.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But like people will be like, "I want to get inked." It's like, don't say that. Don't say that. Just. I mean, I think just don't abbreviate it. It's a tattoo. So you come in and say, "Hey, I want to get a tattoo." I say, "Cool. What do you want to do?" And you'll be like, "I want to get a butterfly on the top of my arm." And I'll be like, "Okay, cool. Do you know what style you want it in?" But now most of the time, so this is like when I first started tattooing, was like people will bring in pictures. You know, like when people used to print out directions from MapQuest.
Yes. So they don't have
but now
what they want.
Yeah, now people will be like, "Well, I have some images on my phone." Everybody has a Pinterest board with images on their phone. So they'll show me like, okay. Yeah, so they'll be like, "I really like this picture of this butterfly." And I'll be like, "Cool, let me see it." So I'll check it out and be like, "That's not a tattoo. That is a digital image that somebody superimposed onto somebody's body." So I'll walk you through the heartbreaking shit that people don't really get right off the bat. Oh, so like it's like line work that's like way too tiny and fine. Oh. That's just gonna blow out, which means the line will get super fuzzy, or it'll just completely fall away. It's too much detail into a small spot.
Thick enough to like actually like stick, basically. Or,
exactly. Yeah. And then people will be like, "Okay, well, I want like a word on the inside of my finger," and I'll be like, "No, that's a bad idea." And they'll be like, "Why?" And then I have to explain to them that the bottoms of our hands and the bottoms of our feet don't hold pigment very well. Like if you can see, I have a J right there.
Uh-huh.
That J looked really good when it was first done, but the top line up here blew out and the bottom line here fell out. You know, that's just because the palms aren't meant to be tattooed, nor are the insides of the fingers or anything like that.
Is it the skin on your palms like is kind of changing, or just is it use? Just a lot of use, or?
Yeah, a lot. Well, it's constantly moving.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't really have a real good chance to heal correctly. So you'll see that people of color will have, like on the palms of their hands and the pads of their feet will be a lighter complexion than the top of their arms or legs. And that's because we don't have as much melanin in that area. So when you're trying to force pigmentation into that area to change the color, you're just going to have a hard time. It's going to be battle.
That makes sense. Yeah, because like our hands and like bottom of our feet like don't get like sunburn or like don't get color on them when we're like out in the sun.
Yeah, super sensitive areas generally don't hold tattoos very well even.
Interesting.
So come back, and so then I'll be like, okay, so they originally wanted this, the writing on the sides of their hand. And I'll be like, okay, and I'll explain to them why it won't work. And I'll be like, let's move it here. Let's move it on the side of your arm. Or let's move it just up a little bit so it's on the side of your hand here as opposed to like down here. And I'll be like, okay, cool, that works. And then I'll be like, all right, give me a couple minutes to draw it. I go draw it, come back, show them. They're like, I don't really like the B. And so I'll be right back and I'll change the B however many times you need it, right? Within reason. You know, people sometimes will nitpick a little bit, and at that point you just kind of need to gently tell them, you know, what is doable and what's not doable. You don't want to do letters too small because then they can come in on themselves over time, because tattoos, the lines grow ever so slightly over time. That's just how it is. It's just the nature of tattooing. So which comes back to why you can't put too much detail into like a really small design. So then we agree on the design. I make a stencil. They come back to the station after I've already had it set up and everything. They sit down. I shave the skin. I alcohol it, clean the skin. I put a salve on it that will stick the stencil. I lay the stencil on the skin. They go check it out in the mirror. They really dig it, or they need to move it. Either or, and they come back, and I'll usually start with a small line. Just get it going. You know, let's just start with a small line. I usually have to walk people through their first tattoos. If they're in painful areas, you kind of have to say, all right, you need to make sure you're breathing. If you have a meditation practice, kind of try to bring that into this, and just really focus on the breath, not on the pain. Don't gasp for air. Don't shudder. Don't try to run away. You know?
Yeah, don't move. Yeah.
Do you feel like, well, I guess you were doing stuff for a while, but do you get nervous ever to like do stuff just because it's like on a person and you can't control like what they're gonna
and a lot of times too, like, so like if I'm doing a giant paragraph on somebody's ribs, that's like just like they'll say the Serenity Prayer. That's not a like small amount of words. That's a lot of words. So then you have to take into consideration that each one of those lines needs to be perfect, obviously, but there's no shading to hide any missteps. So like, let's say if you did this line right here and you hiccuped a little bit right there, you go back and you fix it. You just do a little bit of shading off of it and you get creative with the shading. And the best tattooers are the ones that can hide their mistakes the best. That's what was told to me when I was a youngling. Yeah. And so with lettering, that's why a lot of people don't do lettering, because it's too scary. So then to add in on that, the stencil can wipe off if you don't do it the right way. So if you have half the Serenity Prayer tattooed, half, or let's say a third of it's tattooed, a third of it's wiped off, and a third of it's still there, you got to get real creative with either redrawing it back on or trying to replace a stencil, which is like not the easiest thing to do.
That sounds so to me.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of things that go into it, and like, you know, when just doing tattoos on the torso are not easy because your torso moves a lot. You can put your arm down and not move your arm, you know, but when you're laying on your back and you're getting your stomach tattooed, and you're trying your best to control your breathing so that I can get in a rhythm with you, but you're like, oh, fuck, that hurt, that's like when you go, oh, my needle's going, you know?
Oof,
So you gotta like, yeah, it can be nerve-wracking. I'm confident in doing it, that's like, I'm much more confident now. It's however many years, almost 10 years in, if you include my apprenticeship,
Yeah. Do you have any suggestions for somebody who is getting their first tattoo about,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would, so we'll start with the consult first. My biggest suggestion is to be open to other ways of doing what it is you want to get done. Okay, so listen to the tattooer. A lot of times we know what we're talking about. We do it for a living, which also surprises me. A lot of people are like, so what else do you do for a living? Or what do you do for a living? And I have to be like, this? What do you mean? You're paying $400 for this.
Yeah.
What do you,
Yeah.
So just being open to maybe you might not get it exactly the way you think it's going to be or the way you think it should be, but just being open to some ideas from the tattooer.
Kind of trusting the tattooer, like, hey, you're the artist. I'm coming to you for a reason. I trust you, kind of thing.
Yeah. And also trusting the process of it too.
Yeah.
And then once so generally, you'll set your appointment, or if you're a walk-in and you'll have this conversation that we just had, and then the tattooer will go back and draw it or photocopy it if it's like your mom's handwriting or something, which we do a lot. And you just want to make sure you eat a really nice big meal before you come in. Carb heavy. You want to make sure that your body is focused more on digesting the food than it is on the pain that you're feeling. Because if you are just so worried about the pain and your blood sugar starts dropping because you haven't eaten anything, you're going to pass out. And there's a possibility you could throw up. And there's a possibility you could piss yourself or shit yourself. It's definitely happened.
Really? Do you have any? Has that ever happened to you?
Not me. I've had people throw up, plenty of times, but I haven't had anybody piss or shit themselves. But I do know one of my friends. He works at the time, I'm not going to name him, but he worked at that first shop in Vegas that did like the TV shows. So it was a famous shop, right? And so like, let's say for this is an Amazon plug. I'll take my sponsorship anytime.
You got it. I'll write them.
So like
full ad.
So this recycle symbol, if you wanted that on the top of your forearm, I'd probably do that for between $80 to $100, depending on how big it is. So, but that in Vegas at this shop would cost $450.
Oh my gosh.
Because you're getting tattooed at a shop that's on TV.
Yeah.
Though you're not going to be on TV. It's a world famous shop by probably a world famous tattooer. And you're just kind of paying to play,
Yeah.
So anyways, he was getting ready and did a tattoo or started a tattoo that was a cross. It was about this big with some angel wings coming off the back of it on this girl's lower back. So she's sitting in a high chair with her arms up over the high chair, right? So her like back is like the head here, butt here, chair here, legs down. Yeah. And then my buddy's right here tattooing. And he gets like 3 lines, and so he does the top line, or not the top line, but like the line from the bottom of the cross, pulls it over, starts to pull it back down again to meet it here, and she passes out. At this shop in Vegas, which is not generally normal, you pay for your entire tattoo before you get it. So she passed out and she shit herself. And she was wearing small little white shorts.
Oh, no.
And he was like, are you staying? And when she woke up, he's like, are you staying in this hotel? And she's like, yes. Oh my God, I'm so mortified. He's like, okay, go to your room, change your pants, take a shower, come back down, we'll figure this out.
Aww.
She's like, oh my God, okay. So she went upstairs and never came back down.
Oh. Yeah.
So she's got the bottom half of a cross. and some
Maybe you
ruined
got it,
pants.
like fixed somewhere else. That's so sad.
Oh,
I'd be so embarrassed.
Oh,
At that point, I would probably just suggest somebody like just getting that part lasered off or covered up.
yeah.
You just have like a fucking.
I maybe wouldn't want to get that finished because it would always just remind me.
Yeah.
Well, because like I mean, the lower back. A lot of people think like getting your butt tattooed is like super easy, or your lower back, because a lot of people have the tramp stamp, which is rude. Don't call it that.
Okay.
And that's not. You have an insane amount of nerves down in your butt and your lower back. Those are incredibly painful spots.
Yeah.
More sensitive.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with like where you like have a lot of fat or where like I would rather get my shin tattooed than my calf any day of the week.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And just because less nerve endings kind of thing?
Yeah, there's just not really a lot going on there.
That's interesting.
Our feet, like I've heard top of feet.
Painful.
What is the most painful?
Probably your private area.
Yeah, aside from your genitals, like probably like right where your butt meets your leg, the booty shelf.
Oh.
That's a very like if you've ever had a like we've all had them. If you ever had a pimple there and you try to pop it, it's like send you through the roof. You know what I mean? But other than that, like places where your body bends over, so like your arm ditch, your armpit, the back of your knee, those places are all painful. But generally, like places where people will get tattooed a lot is like feet and ribs are pretty painful.
Oof.
Wow.
Both of those sound so painful to me.
Well, I think it's really cool, man, that I don't know, it seems like, and I want you to speak to this a little bit, but I know tattooing it's getting better now, but it's had a bad connotation, you know? And so I think it's cool that you persisted in the fact that you love this medium of art and that you're still doing it. I mean, can you speak to I'm a people pleaser, so I'm like, it's hard for me to overcome the stigma. Like, oh no, people don't like what I'm doing. Ugh.
Yeah.
You know, like how do you work past that as a tattooer? Do you just don't care?
Well, yeah, a lot of it kind of comes down to it. And it's not that I don't care, because I do care. I care a lot about like what people think about me and like things like that. Like, you know, so 3 years ago before we had Stella, I was like seriously thinking about getting like something on my face right here, you know, and I was like, you know, I'll just do like a little cross there. You know, I think that'll look really nice. It's like a fine line cross, get it done really well, and like it'll just be like a nice ornament on my face kind of deal. And then and then Lauren got pregnant, and we revisited the subject like when she was still pregnant, and she was like, because Lauren's never told me ever like what to get tattooed or what to not get tattooed, but she's my wife. I'd take her opinion on everything, you know. And so I'll be like, "What do you think about that?" She's like, "Well, I think you should just think like, you know, will that affect Stella negatively?" And a lot of people, you know, don't know somebody with a face tattoo.
Yeah.
You know, and so like a lot of people know somebody with a butterfly on their ankle. That's one thing. But when you come to drop your daughter off at my house to play with my daughter, and I'm in the front yard with my pit bull, and I have a fucking face tattoo, you're not going to drop your daughter off. You know what I mean? Maybe you will, but I don't like, I like to think that I'm liked, you know, and I'm like pretty charming, and I have, you know, I talk to people well, you know what I mean? So, but if that like first interaction, like you see this dude with his face tattooed, I'm probably not going to feel super comfortable with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I kind of try to put my place in that.
So
and I kind of, you know, yeah, I kind of worry about like, well, will Stella's friends in elementary or middle school make fun of her because her dad is heavily tattooed? Or, you know, it's like, to some extent, I like deal with it kind of, but also if I can avoid that by not having my face tattooed, which is kind of like a selfish thing, like I really want that cross on my face. Like, okay, well, do you need it right now? You know, so I kind of Laura and I kind of talked about it, and I was like, I think I'm gonna revisit that when I'm 40.
Yeah.
And if I still want that tattoo when I'm 40, I'll think about it.
Yeah.
But for now, it's held.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. Well, so I just have one last question for you, and maybe it's a big question, maybe it's not. I know that especially right now with COVID-19 and everything that's happening, I have been hit by a lot of creative discouragement where I've felt like I'm so worried about my family, I'm so worried about everything that's happening. But I've hit these points in my life before where I'm just like, can't bring myself to create, or I'm scared to create. And I'm imagining, as a tattoo artist, you probably hit those roadblocks where, you're going to put something permanent on somebody's body, or maybe they don't like it, and that puts you in a tailspin. How do you overcome creative discouragement? Or do you? Or is it something you just have to ride through?
Well, I definitely have creative discouragement. Like I have some commissions going right now where people commission me to do a painting for them. So it's like a tat for your wall. You know what I mean? And it's great because there's a lot of essential workers that are doing nothing but accruing money right now. And they want to help people like me who are completely out of work, and I'm the sole provider for our home. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, people will be like, I just want something cool. I'll be like, God, like, can you give me a little more direction than that? Like, because what I think is cool, you might not think is cool. You know what I mean? So, like, I really appreciate it. I know this is not exactly what you asked, but like, if somebody was just like, I really want a picture of the Grim Reaper riding a surfboard. That's cool. I got you. No problem.
Yeah.
So, like, I am having a little bit of a hard time with my mind, like, coming up with new ideas. And that's what's awesome about working at the shop that I work at with the guys, is that everyone's like on top of it, and they all have great ideas, and we collaborate and bounce things off each other. And, having Lauren here helps too, because she's got ideas as well, but it's just, I don't know.
So like collaborating.
Yeah. So your answer is that you just try to bounce ideas off people and just collaborate that way. That's cool, man. I find the same way. It is so hard for me what I do. The listeners,
I always have to talk to other people.
Right. The listeners know what I do, but I shoot food photography and food videos for So Yummy. And it's hard, man. It's hard to think of new stuff, and especially when it's just your brain thinking about it. But at the moment, you can like make it a community thing, like asking people and.
Because your brain isn't just thinking about that. Your brain's thinking about, when the fuck am I going to go back to work? Right. When am I going to be able to go to the park again? Yeah. I really want to go to the movies. I really want to go to the Olive Garden. You know what I mean? I miss the breadsticks.
Yeah.
The never ended, I don't, because we had it last night.
I was going to say, like, did you guys get that for your anniversary?
Yeah. But it's like, people have so many underlying worries that that aren't in the forefront of their mind, but are in the back. And it's just like constantly getting you. And that can destroy creativity.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
That's cool, man. Well, thank you so much for coming and, for being a part of our podcast. I feel like I learned a lot. I learned a lot about tattooing. I know you're my brother and I should know all this stuff, but I didn't know it all. Yeah.
Do you have like a website or like somewhere we can send people if they want to commission?
Right now I'm
paintings, right?
Say that again.
You're doing commissioning for like paintings and stuff, right?
Yeah, my commissions are a little backed up right now. I'm probably a couple weeks out on that, but my books are never closed for those. So if you ever want a painting, you want to commission me for one, you can.
I'll just share in our description your Instagram handle and stuff like that. If that works.
Yeah. I also have some paintings that I'm going to be creating a website for in the next couple of days to sell merchandise and paintings and stickers. I kind of have an idea for a quarantine pack.
Oh, cool.
That I don't know. I was kind of thinking about last
night.
That
sounds fun. I do think that as hard as everything is right now, I do love that we're seeing just like everyone trying to support everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I've bought a few things from like small companies to try and keep them afloat, and like
Absolutely.
do you think that is something that's like positive somewhat coming out of all this? But
Totally.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that people like there's a lot of unity that's coming out of this.
right.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
it's like we're going through a really hard time.
Mhm.
It's a time that nobody that's living right now, well, I can't say that, but most people that are living right now have never seen something as hard as this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much, and loved having you on the show.
yeah.
And
You're
that's
welcome.
the end. And that's the end. So.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. If you'd like to get in contact with us, our email is clappodcast@gmail.com. We love talking to creative people. If you're interested in coming on the show, let us know. We'll see you next week.